Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Dr. Regina Bradley, and this is Outkasted Conversations number 35, and we getting up there. But this episode is gonna be dope because we got one of my favorite scholars in the world, Dr. Bettina Love, who's assistant professor in educational policy and social and all that other good stuff at University of Georgia. Dr. Love, how you?
What's up?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm excited for this conversation, and thanks.
I'm excited too to do the 35th conversation. I'm 35. That feels good.
It's just alignment in the stars. It's just we just
There
ready to
it
go.
is.
Yo, but you know what you gotta do to get into the club? How did you become outcasted?
Man, I've been thinking about this one hard too. Like, this is the hardest question to answer. Okay, so I got two things. I know I only get one, but I'm gonna give you two things. So, first and foremost would be my brother. My father was from Jacksonville, Florida, and my brother just wanted to be Southern so much. So we were born and raised in Rochester, New York, but my father never left his Southern roots. And so my brother just refused to be Northern. I mean, he was that New York dude, walk around in green and lime sneakers, and everybody would call him country, and he didn't care. And so he would bring Southern rap into my house nonstop. And I think I really started to understand rap and Southern hip hop and Outkast right around the same time. I was 16 years old, and I started my first job when I was 16. On my 16th birthday, I started my job. And that whole summer, you need to get up, get out, and get something. I played that every single day to work. And it was just a moment in my life that was just so pivotal. I was on that track to either make it or not, and that was my motivational song to do it.
Okay, what was the second one?
In due time, baby. That was
Yes.
the second track. That was the second track. So I had my brother, and then I had that song, and it was just those two things was influential in my life. My brother, and then him bringing in Southern hip hop into my house.
Okay. Well, yeah, we're gonna claim you Southern by association, deep association. So we're gonna give you your card. Your membership has been approved. But yo, you do some really phenomenal and often unorthodox work around children and pedagogy and hip hop, especially Southern hip hop, which is helping you start to stand apart from other folks who do pedagogy and hip hop. You know what I'm saying? Which is necessary. So let's start there. As a education scholar, you know what I mean? Why is it important to include the South in conversations about hip hop pedagogy?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's about location and understanding the youth that you're dealing with. You know, I'm not going to say that there wasn't a time in my life where I thought teaching kids Nas in the South was the thing to do. Like, I have evolved, and I understand that it's about students' location. And so when I hear that Southern twang in Andre's voice, I got to make sure my students hear it in the classroom as well. And so they know and understand their greatness and their potential is here where they're from. So I've really been intentional about all of the work that I do to not only talk about Southern rap, but Southern history, so students can locate themselves in their present history. And that we got to understand that, hip hop can't be something that's just always about the North. Because if that happens, kids can't locate themselves. They don't understand their stories, and their stories are not real. So for me, it's always about how do I reach kids where they are. And if I'm in the South, I'm using Southern music. If I was in LA working, I'll be using East Coast music.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to make sure that I am bringing the realities to students' lives in real time with the music that they're engaged in and listening to.
I think that's dope, especially that you work with the Real Talk project over at Kid Desi here in Atlanta. And I just think that Atlanta, in its more recent history, hasn't quite yet reached the level of analysis that Atlanta and the South reached in the civil rights movement and beforehand. Why is it important to document how students are kind of navigating through these ideas of struggle and triumph using Southern hip hop like Outkast?
I think first and foremost is what Outkast was able to do. I'm a big Outkast fan. I'm a fanatic. And I think for two major reasons. One, personal narratives, right? This is something that everybody could relate to. and it was daily stories. And number two, they made these personal narratives relatable. And so no matter who you were, black, your ethnicity, your race, your sexual orientation, your class, all of those things, you can find yourself within an Outkast song, an album, a video. And so to think about that and think about Southern hip hop in general, about how relatable it is to the everyday struggle of oppressed people, of indigenous people. And that's why I think students gravitate to it so much. I think that's why as a generation, as a globe, we gravitate to it so much, because it's deeply rooted in our experiences.
Right, right. You dropped a book recently, Hip Hop's Little Sistas Speak, right, which is a really great ethnographic study of ideas of race and gender and identity in Southern hip hop, particularly in Atlanta. And I just, one of the things that many of us, our critique is that when we have these conversations about Southern hip hop, we often leave out, for lack of a better term, the woman question, right? And where women and young girls fit into this narrative that we're trying to construct as a form of critical analysis. Can you tell us a little bit about your book and the ways in which you're trying to, renegotiate what these ideas of gender and race mean?
Well, I think first and foremost, I wanted to center Atlanta as part of the book. I just didn't want to talk about young girls without talking about the space that they consume and they live in and they exist in. So since my study was in Atlanta, Georgia, it is so much about Atlanta. And for me as an outsider, Atlanta is a very interesting place. So you have civil rights movements, right? This is the birthplace of King. Then in the same breath, you have strip club culture. In the same breath, you have Chick-fil-A, which is not open on Sundays, right? So this social conservative moving throughout the city. Then in the same breath, you have Coca-Cola, and not Coke as the drink, but as a metaphor for capitalism. And then the fifth thing, you have gentrification taking place. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you take a district like where King grew up, which in 2004 was about 94% African American. 2014, it's about 74% African American. And you have a city that is being turned upside down because of the economy, because of jobs, because of strip club culture, all of these things happening at one time with this unbelievable history, this local identity that's taking place, and then how do young girls see and consume themselves within such an unbelievable sight? And I think that's, for me, I wanted the book to be as messy as possible. I did not want it to be a easy to find narrative. I wanted to talk about where girls have agency and where girls don't have agency. And so I really wanted to be something that was as gray as possible, thinking about the work of Joe Morgan. And so I wanted all that to really explain how these young girls interact and engage with hip hop. Not just, they listen to music. No, they listen to music passing a billboard that's for Magic City. That says something. That means something. Or they're listening to hip hop, trying to locate themselves, and they're walking past neighborhoods that used to be burgeoning neighborhoods of black folks, and now they're gone. And what does that mean for my local identity? And so I wanted all that to speak to how messy it is to consume hip hop. It's not just this, I dance because I like this song. No, it's much more at play than that.
Yeah, I'm all about the messy, you know what I'm saying? And I'm especially all about making this idea of a contemporary Southern Black identity messy. One of the things that I was thinking about when you were talking about, locating yourself in a particular type of narrative is when we think about the Atlanta and the South that Outkast was talking about, in the early 1990s, even up to the early 2000s, you know what I'm saying? They were still pretty much new to the map, this international space, this transient space, but yet we still have yet to really talk about, how we're in conversation with those who came up during that time period, you know what I'm saying? And that's what I really like about the Real Talk is that it's almost like it's almost like an archival project, you know what I mean? In ways that Outkast was documenting what was going on and what was important to them and to the hood in the early 90s. It's the same way that you're using the Real Talk project at Kendesi to document what's going on, what's important to these kids that are coming up now, and putting them in conversation with each other is extremely important. So I was wondering, could you talk a little bit about what you feel the significance of Outkast is as a pedagogical tool of understanding local identity?
Um, I think as a pedagogical tool, it's just an unbelievable space. And so when you think about grit, when you think about struggle, when you think the notion of improvisation, when you think about all the things kids need to be successful, to be able to write complex narratives, to be able to speak and engage in critical thought, you see all of that in the work of Outkast. And so for me is how do I take that ingenuity that is Outkast and then bring it to kids in their everyday lives and make it real. Mm-hmm. And I think one thing as a hip hop person who does work in hip hop but also thinks about the lives of kids, you really don't have to do much when you give kids the space. When you bring in authentic stories, when you let them understand that these authentic stories will be what you use to tell your story, they will start to do the work. They will start to engage. And so, it's funny because when I started Real Talk, the goal of the project was to do a historical piece on Outkast. And so I wanted these kids to understand how important Outkast was not only to the world, but to Atlanta. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted them to look at where Big Boy and Andre went to school, right? So we can go there. We can go to cities and understand, right, where they went to school. But then every time we got to a final project, a black boy was killed. Mm. And so when we got to the final project 2 years ago, and I'm thinking about what the final project could be, the kids are saying, I think it should be Trayvon Martin. Mm. And so for me, as someone who does work in hip hop and understand that hip hop, the crux of hip hop and creativity is improvisation. So these kids got to be able to improv, and that means I got to be able to improv too. So right. The last 3 years, I have not been able to get my Outkast unit done, but we've done incredible things that are inspired by the work of Outkast. The storytelling, the talking back and forth, thinking about the imagination, understanding the struggle, talking about the struggle, are all the things that we've done in the work without ever saying the words Outkast. And I think that's the beauty of Outkast and the beauty of Southern hip hop.
Right.
Hip hop in general.
Right. Speaking of grit and academic success in hip hop, your TEDx talk at Georgia this past spring was absolutely brilliant. And you come up with, this I don't know, spirit murder, right? The murdering of the spirit of these kids in these classrooms when we take away any type of language or creativity that they have because it doesn't fulfill a specific type of academic obligation, right? And I just think that's so important, especially not just to Southern hip hop, but just to hip hop in general, as this space in order to make yourself visible, in order to make yourself known. But can you tell us a little bit about, how you came up with that idea and extend it into this conversation that we're having about the significance of Outkast, because they document ideas of spirit murder throughout their entire catalog, and something that I immediately think about is the art of storytelling. You know what I'm saying? And talking about, Sasha Thumper and the unfortunate circumstances that she was playing with. So could you give us a little bit more discussion about this concept of spirit murder and how it can apply to this conversation about hip hop in the South?
Yeah, so the concept comes actually from legal studies, thinking about critical race theory. And so it's a scholar by the name of Patricia Williams, and she coined the term spirit murdering. And so she used it as more of a legal reference of taking away your liberty and your rights. And I kind of thought about it more in terms of education in the same way. So if I'm sitting in the classroom and you're not letting me be myself, you're not letting me learn in the ways in which that I want to learn, and to say that I can't learn, you're murdering my spirit and who I am in the classroom. And so for me, spirit murdering takes place when students have to sit there and be something that they're not. They have to learn in ways in which they don't want to learn. And so I'm rhythmic. I move a lot. I'm loud. This is just who I am. And you tell me to sit in the classroom and I can't be that. You're murdering my spirit. And then you expect me to learn. Mm. And so for me, I see Outkast as that, but I also see it as a space of healing the spirit.
All right.
And so through their narratives, I remember growing up listening to Outkast, and it was a place of healing for me because my spirit had been murdered so much. teachers telling me that I was not college material, walking in my community and seeing it dilapidated by drugs and by crime. And so when I turned on, I remember her number like a summer. That was like healing for me in the art of storytelling. Because it was a place I could go to understand why I was feeling the way I was feeling. It was a place to go to understand what I was seeing. And it was also a place where these people were telling me how to navigate this. Like, I'm going to stumble. I'm going to fail. But you got to get back up.
Right.
And so I also see it as a place to tell those real stories of the spirit being murdered, but I also see it as a place of healing for young kids to go, for older folks to go. I still go there, when I need a little something. I still can turn on in due time when I need a little something, because it is a space of healing. And I think that's, for me, what Outkast has always been.
Yo, I really like that idea too, right? So not only is it a space of acknowledging the spirit murder, but also a way to heal and rectify the situation. And I'm definitely with you, because when I first moved to the South, I didn't know what it meant to be Southern. And Outkast, I was going through some things coming down from, where I was at. And that definitely was a healing moment for me also. So that deeply resonates with you. Dr. Love, you know how we do, man. We can talk all day, but tell the folks what you're working on, how they can get in touch with you, all that good stuff.
Well, you know me. I'm in the Twitters. So hit me up at Love Soul Power. I got a lot of projects going on right now that I'm trying to juggle. New book is going to drop soon. It's an edited book with Venus Evan Winters on Black feminism, really inspired by the work of Cynthia Dillard. Also going to be doing a special journal edition on Black lesbian teachers and our roles in mentoring. And then in about a month and a half, Real Talk is going to put out an amazing, amazing project, which is really focused and centers on the work of Dream Defenders.
Nice.
So 3 weeks ago, Philip Agnew actually came to our class and met with my Real Talk students. They had an unbelievable conversation with him, asked him some important and amazing questions, and then they dissected his 2-minute speech. Each student took a section of his speech. They are writing their speeches right now, and we're going to put them together throughout November to really speak back to the Dream Defenders, to speak back to Philip, because in the speech, he asked you to speak back to him.
Right.
And so my students are getting ready to do that. So I'm going to the mall right now to buy power hats that he wears, and so they are truly excited to think about what change they can make in their local community by being educated. So we're talking about queer folks, we're talking about CC McDonald, we're talking about Vietnam vets and homelessness, of course, Ferguson, Mike Brown, all of those topics are important. So in about 3 weeks, we'll be dropping, about a month, we'll be dropping the video. So I'm really excited for the kids to see that come together.
Yo, I can't wait for that video, because if it's anything like what you did with the Trayvon Martin thing, it's game-changing stuff. Dr. Love, thank you so much for doing the work that you do and giving us a few minutes of your time and all that other good stuff. We appreciate you, ma'am.
Man, I appreciate you, sis.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm Dr. Regina Bradley. This is Outkasted Conversations. We'll holler at y'all next week. Y'all be easy.